In 2007, Bungie announced their decision to part ways with their parent company Microsoft. They had been owned for a little over 6 years, and after their run with the Halo franchise were looking to blaze new trails. They formed an independent private company, and Microsoft would remain a minority shareholder during this process. And with that meant Halo had to end. They told Master Chief's story with the Covenant trilogy and fleshed out the world with tactics games as well as a Halo 2 interquel with Halo 3 ODST, but Microsoft was not ready to give up on the franchise. Halo was their killer app, and had been with them since the Xbox launched. Aside from their first-party publisher, Xbox Game Studios, Microsoft had turned 10, a company they established internally to handle Forza, as well as Rare, who they acquired in 2002 from Nintendo, best known for GoldenEye 007, Killer Instinct, and Banjo-Kazooie. The Xbox had third-party support, and it was stellar, but between the PlayStation 2, which was the best-selling game console of all time, thanks in part to it being a cost-efficient game console and DVD player, and with the Nintendo GameCube's gimmick just being rock-solid hardware, no real third parties called the Xbox home per se. It made sense to sign a contract with Sony too, and at that point you may as well sell the game to Pikmin fans then as well. Halo made the Xbox 2 generations in a row, and without Halo, it was safe to say Microsoft had no identity, virtually nothing to call their own. Nobody bought an Xbox for Blinks, nobody bought an Xbox for Whacked, and while Gears of War was a popular title on the 360, it wasn't Halo, and these sales figures reflected that. It's safe to say the Xbox 360 was facing a slight crisis of confidence. While their console hit store shelves a solid year before their competitors, the Wii's accessibility and fun library made that a runaway success, nearly impossible to find in stores for months. The Xbox 360 was outselling the PlayStation 3, valued at $400 at its most conservative and close to $700 at its best, but a price cut, redesign, and aggressive marketing in 2009 propelled Sony's consoles once again into the limelight, paired with the success of the Uncharted series. Microsoft's competition left and right was flourishing, and they were about to lose their star property, the reason people bought an Xbox. They needed a backup plan, they needed contingencies, and most of all, they needed to find an heir to the Halo brand. Halo Reach, or as Bungie just wanted to call it, Reach, was released on September 14th, 2010, and while it shouldn't be a surprise that it's the best looking Halo game to date, it's also not hard to stress that, yeah, the game looks great. Models are detailed well, textures and materials are very well rendered and pretty sharp even nowadays. Really, the only thing this game needs to look like an 8th gen title is just more bloom, or more post-processing. I don't know, it still looks great, is my point. Reach follows in the footsteps of ODST pretty soundly. In most Halo games, you play the slow and tanky Master Chief as he performs feats of strength and tenacity fighting the Covenant. In ODST, you played as regular Marines, who couldn't jump as high and had health to manage, but you operated in a squad. In Reach, you're Spartans, but you aren't as capable as the Chief. Your shields regenerate slowly and you need to pick up health frustrums when your health is low, almost exactly like Combat Evolved, and that makes a lot of sense as Reach is a direct prequel to Halo Combat Evolved. The game's ending blends right into the start of the original game seamlessly. Hey, what were they doing in that opening cutscene?
As for tracking us all the way from Reach...
Oh. Let's just ignore that for a second and instead talk about what Spartans other than Chief can do. You can sprint. The Spartans have augments that you activate with the shift key, or whatever the button on the gamepad is, and by default you have sprint, which lets you, there's a shield, there's a hologram I couldn't quite get to work correctly, and armor lock, and a jetpack. But armor lock is probably the more interesting of the bunch. In theory, it's 5 seconds of near invincibility, followed by an EMP blast to disable vehicles. In practice, I'd try to sprint and then 6 starts punching the ground. That's going to end up in a lot of this footage if I had to guess. It does come in handy for handling things like grenades. It actually pulls needler rounds and grenades off of you if they've been stuck, which is incredibly helpful. Just the muscle memory is a little bit of a problem. The player is Spartan B312, member 6 of the Noble Team, investigating a blackout in a communication hub. What's thought to simply be the work of those who protest the UNSC's violent approach to diplomacy is later revealed to be the Covenant, a religious death cult hell-bent on destroying all who stand in their wake en route to some kind of holy sigil. They have invaded Reach looking for some kind of artifact, and are willing to glass the planet to find it. The Noble Team is gonna push them back. Their goal? Send a message and destroy the Covenant's supercarrier, Long Night of Solace. And to do that, we're stealing a saber? Okay, what? We're going into space. Oh my god. So, for the first time in the series' history, we're doing a proper space battle. This is a one and done mission in Reach, unfortunately, but god damn, this rules. Barrel rolls, loops, 2 kinds of weapon, and a really robust enemy tracking system too. This could very well be its own game, and it's just a bump on the road towards this game's plot. This level blew my mind. Did not know this was in the game. Absolutely blew me away. 10 out of 10. There's just one problem with our plan to blow up the supercarrier, and it's that we don't have a bomb with a remote detonator. Someone has to stay aboard and detonate it, taking their life in the process. Jorge, a Spartan 2, hands his dog tags to the player, and we fall back towards Reach, knowing that we destroyed the Covenant's supercarrier. Oh, shit. Whoa, okay. So that was like the equivalent of slapping a wasp's nest. They've got reserves. They've got a lot of reserves. Well, rest in peace. You died for pretty much nothing. With the realization that the Covenant is dead set on glassing Reach and will spare no expense to do so, we really only have 2 goals anymore. Find what they want and take it, and get everyone else off Reach. The next 2 missions are the latter, with us evacuating a city, and then a pretty open sandboxy air support mission where we chopper around the remains of New Alexandria to take out Covenant jammers and help out whoever we can. This mission is actually pretty fun. This game has a lot of really interesting missions that play with the style and format of Halo missions, and I really appreciate that. You really get the feeling that Bungie wanted to make this their swan song, and it really shows. One of our missions winds up being to blow up Sword Base to prevent the Covenant from stealing our intel. Or so we think, as it turns out that Dr. Catherine Halsey has what the Covenant is after. And who is Dr. Halsey, you ask? Well, you might know her as the lady they kinda mention in one line of dialogue in Halo 3. Okay, so by this point, we need to address that the world of Halo is larger than just the games. A lot larger. Since 2001, the Halo series has had official novels, comics, and even an anime, all done specifically to flesh out the world surrounding the games. Catherine Halsey was responsible for the Spartan 2 program, which abducted children as young as age 6 and rammed them full of augments that would kill or cripple them. If they survived, they were now Spartan 2s, like Jorge. That's why his armor is so bulky. Spartan 3s had leaner armor, and most of their augmentation was gene therapy, which caused lasting psychological damage in Spartans. But that was fine, because Spartan 3s were designed to just kill Covenant. Their missions were almost always suicide missions, and even if they survived, they weren't going to last much longer, because they didn't need to. All of this is in the books, and the only part of this that's relevant to the games is Spartan kill Covenant. In mission, Halsey has stumbled upon a Forerunner ship, and on it is a massive cache of information that might help point the UNSC in the direction of means to defeat the Covenant. She has a data core with her own little weird AI companion handed over. Oh man, I sure hope that doesn't become part of Windows 10. And she has the Noble Team move her and this intel to the Pillar of Autumn, a massive ship that would be able to make the track for what they seek. Wait, holy shit, is that my icon? That little dopey ace of spades on the guy's lapel? So this is actually where I learned that Halo Reach's character customization isn't just for the multiplayer stuff I won't play. It actually affects the entire game, campaign and all. Had I played the original 2010 release, I might have seen a character customization mode somewhere other than the options menu hidden in an additional submenu, and thus the realization that I can customize 6 would have happened a lot sooner. I just figured that the dark gray armor was just because this was a darker game tonally and visually than the rest of the series. You can even opt to play as a female Spartan, and the Master Chief Collection actually breaks that up further. You can use the lithe femme-coated armor with a male Spartan, or the bulkier male-coated armor but a lady's voice. That's actually a really nice touch. Wow. I was gonna make my Spartan purple, but I decided to try my best to make him trans flag colors. The meat of the armor is still gray, so it didn't pan out. So we make it to the Pillar of Autumn and get Halsey aboard, but there's just one problem. See, to launch the ship is going to take some time, and Emil dies making his way to the railgun that hold off the Covenant. Six, who all this time had been a self-described hyper-violent lone wolf, sacrifices their own safety to both avenge Emil's death and to see to it that the Pillar of Autumn can escape Reach safely. Emil is the last of the noble squad dead but us. Jorge gave his life for an ultimately pointless, stupid sacrifice. In hindsight, our skillful hacker character Kat had her brains blown out by a Covenant sniper, the leader and pilot of the team Carter went down with his ship to take out a Scarab, and Emil joins them trying to protect the Pillar. June... I don't actually know what happened to June. Also, while I'm here, I do need to mention, in some of these levels, you have a squad mechanic where various NPCs will join your fire team. They all have custom call signs and names, which is nuts, and it really does help you feel like you're part of a bigger team that just keeps dying. I really appreciate that touch. Kudos to you. The player stays back and makes their hitbox fucking enormous to fight back waves of Covenant and secure the Pillar has a safe trip into slipspace, but forever doom them to the once pastoral circle of hell that Reach has become. The planet is swarming with Covenant. Nearly 1 billion people have died in this strife, and a raging alien storm has kicked up dust everywhere. Six is alone, in a wasteland, with no escape. In a way, Lone Wolf is a summation of Halo as a franchise. The noble team completed their task but suffered significant losses, and now you have to wallow in the futility of your objective and fight, despite the fact that success is not possible. You are doomed to die. Your final moments here will be forgotten. Likewise, Bungie did what they needed to do. They fulfilled their contract with Microsoft and were pulling out, and had to face tremendous amounts of crunch and pushback every step of the way for the last 9 years. The story of Halo, the Covenant War, was told front to back, and the only thing left was to drive that point home. Your squad mates are dead, the game is over, and all that's left is to play your own death. Rage against the dying of the light all you want, there is no hope left. It's unfortunate, but it's what happened. This was going to be how I end the video, a big dramatic speech about Bungie burning Halo to the ground and running off to make something new. But the actual final cutscene really drove things home and led to me reanalyzing the game. Over 3 decades after the events of Reach, and a little over 20 years beyond the present day within the Halo canon, Reach does heal. Your helmet, cracked and ruined, lies half buried in the ground amid a pastoral field once again, with mankind returning to Reach and picking up the pieces. And after nearly a decade of playing as Master Chief, Halo Reach ends on the most bittersweet, albeit not bitter, note the franchise could. You don't play as Master Chief or an unnamed ODST with some mild backstory. You play as a blank slate character who is customizable from the ground up. If you want to be a gal clad in bright orange armor, you have that power. If you want to swap out your armor pieces for something more tactical or chunkier or more slim, you can do that. You play as you. You saved Halsey's life. You helped escort Cortana to the Pillar of Autumn. You were responsible for the entire events of Halo. And without you, none of this would have happened. Not just that the Covenant would have won, but Halo wouldn't have been Bungie's most successful franchise. Halo Combat Evolved could have been a weird curiosity on the original Xbox and nothing more, a ship passing in the night. But it sold well enough to get Bungie to make 5 games, get in talks to make a movie, and sign off on heaps of universe extensions. The games were at their biggest around 2010, and Reach proved itself worthy, an ambitious title that ratchets up the drama and emotion, but lets you know everything is okay in the very end. You were a hero, even if you didn't know it at the time, and the people within the world of Halo, and the people at Bungie, have you to thank. So thank you. Halo Reach is ultimately a love letter to Halo as a franchise, made for the fans as a thank you for all the love and support. And beyond the campaign, that love seeps into the rest of the game. The multiplayer has been refreshed and expanded upon, with a ton of unlockables, the widest array of game modes, and with Firefight from ODST, revamped and redesigned, more complete, and with more to check out and repeat playthroughs. And the mode boasts a ton of fan service, as you have the option to replace your Spartan's voice with that of any of the other Noble team members, or with 6 other cameo voice roles, including Buck from ODST, Sergeant Johnson from the Numbered Trilogy, or even Master Chief and Cortana. The multiplayer contains 6 remade multiplayer maps from the series' past amid the 24 maps available, and Firefight includes a map inspired by Halo Combat Evolved. The Forge, the custom game editor, has also been expanded, including a massive chunk of a Halo installation to explore by the name of Forge World. The sandbox mode lets players swap between play and edit mode to set up custom games or just shoot the breeze, and each other, as they saw fit in a lobby. And it's not hard to find people who made the most of the Forge. For them, this may as well have been the game, more or less. And I can only hope the friends made in these modes are still ironclad, some 12 years later. On April 24th, 2010, Bungie had entered a partnership with Activision, who would have the rights to publish all of their new games, and with the release of Halo Reach, their tenure with Microsoft had come to an end. Xbox Game Studios had a complete world, a parable front to back, and an expansive world to cherish, but would lose an integral part of themselves. Halo wasn't just the most prolific series the Xbox had all to its own, it was the identity of the Xbox. Halo became synonymous with the hardware, and vice versa. Microsoft needed to keep Halo going, through one way or another, because without it, what identity did the Xbox have? Forza, a racing simulator with a noteworthy albeit small cult following? Gears of War, a fellow sci-fi action series about large guys in power armor, but which lacked the appeal Halo had? Some prototype motion tracker thing that was kind of just the Wii Remote, but without the Wii Remote, and thus probably wasn't going to be that successful? Whacked? That's when Microsoft had an idea. See, much of the auxiliary media surrounding Halo was made with the blessing of Bungie, but was not made by Bungie themselves. Microsoft Game Studios' franchise development group was a team whose whole goal was to communicate with both developers and non-game studios to embiggen franchises Microsoft had the rights to. The MGS FDG was responsible for a vast majority of those Halo novels, as well as the anime series that launched alongside Reach. These people had worked with the series for nearly a decade. What's a few more years to them? Why not carry them off that group of employees, fetch them some programmers and artists, and make them the new heirs of Halo? And so, 343 Industries was born in 2009. They were mostly responsible for applications and podcasts in the early days, things to go alongside Reach, stuff like Halo Waypoint, which was kind of just a means to view your stats in Reach, outside Reach. But over time, their presence would grow more and more, and with Bungie pulling out, Microsoft got a hold of a few employees and dragged them into 343. The company was named for 343 Guilty Spark, and that was because the studio wasn't designed for anything but Halo. It'd be all Halo all the time over there, which seemed like the perfect answer to their Halo Air issue. An internal team at Microsoft would know more about this world than some lousy third party, and if they're internal, then there's no contracts to renew. They're not going to get burnt out making this game. They're just going to keep making Halo forever. More and more Halo, forever and ever, ad infinitum, always and forever. How much Halo can they dispense? As much as we fucking need. If you liked this video and you'd like to see more, I'd recommend subscribing. Coffee and social media links are in the description.